In this video, let's see how to do this quick interior collage in under 10 minutes. Before we move into the tutorial, I want to tell you guys that all these assets that I have used in this video can be found in our store. They are completely free with no strings attached. Feel free to download them and follow along with this tutorial. These assets have been curated by me over these years of doing visualization. Some of these are from Mr. Cutout, Pexels.com, and even few which I created using AI. Now let's jump straight into the video. This is the model I will be using for today's video. As you can see, it's very simple with minimal details. My idea is to apply different materials for different planes or objects, so I can kind of use this like a material ID to pick things easily when I'm applying materials in Photoshop. After that, I started setting up the angle I like, hid all the unwanted stuff like profiles, axis and even the ground. I also changed the background color to white. Then export this as 2D graphics. Before exporting, change the image size to a higher value, somewhere in 3K or 4K range. I exported two images, one with edges turned on and another with edges turned off. But I used the one with edges turned off only. I brought it into Photoshop and I deleted the white background, so I can start adding the scenery which will be seen through these window openings. I started bringing in different grassland images to see which looks suitable for it and which goes well with each other. You can try with different images until you find what you like. I am masking the sky roughly for now. We can clean them later. Then I brought in some trees to place in the middle ground to add a little more depth to the perspective. Then I added a painted sky texture in the back of the mountains. We will start working from the back, that is sky, background, middle ground, then foreground. Group them accordingly and color code them for easy navigation. Then I started cleaning the edges to merge the sky with the background. Now let's color correct these layers to make them cohesive. Add a black and white adjustment layer. By removing the colors, you can clearly see if there is any level difference between two images. Add a levels adjustment layer and clip it to the sky group and match its gray value. And add a gray color fill layer and make it in luminosity overlay. Now bring a hue and saturation adjustment layer and you can adjust the value to match it by making it in the yellow shade. These layers are just to help you adjust these values. Once you are done, you can hide them. You can unhide them even when working to see the result. But in this case, I am not going to use the hue and saturation adjustment. And I also adjusted the levels of the middle ground elements. Let's start applying the materials. I brought a wood texture and using distort, I tried to match its perspective to the floor. Then I added concrete texture to the walls. You can duplicate and tile the textures to create a larger texture and use the clone stamp tool to merge the edges. Then I distorted them and placed them along the walls. I added a levels adjustment layer and darkened one side of the wall to add a little bit of ambient occlusion. For the rafters, I used a wood texture with prominent grains. Did the same process to make it a larger texture and used the color to select the areas and duplicate it as a separate layer. I did the same process multiple times for all the rafters and added a levels adjustment layer for the texture covering the bottom portion of the rafters. For the ceiling, I brought in a wooden plank texture. I matched its gray value to that of the rafter. Then the window frames. I repeated the process which I did for the rafters. Now let's move to the interior space. I started to add elements inside the space. You can use the assets from the collection that you downloaded right now. You can even create your own assets and start adding them to this collection. Over a period of time, you will have your own library of assets. Once everything is in place, we can start refining them. I started adding shadows by duplicating the layer, cranking its levels value and making it completely black. Then changing its position, reducing its opacity and a little bit of lens blur. Then I also did some fine tuning by distorting the shadows as if it's falling on the floor and wall. Then I brought in the hue and saturation adjustment layer and reduced the saturation of the sky background and even some interior elements like the cup and the plants. Then I added these white lines and reduced its opacity to create the look of glass partitions. Then with small color correction and adding grains using the camera raw filter, this is the final result. Hope you all found something useful in this video. See you in the next one.